Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with me. So much to talk about. So much to talk about. And so much that I'm working through in myself, and was really kind of reflecting on a lot of what's going on, I believe, for all of us. It comes in different ways for some of us, but for all of us, I really believe in certain ways, it's actually the same thing. Meaning, like, we're all going through the same thing, but in different ways, right? So to give you an example, I really believe quite a bit of what 2020 is about is us being faced with ourselves. It's us looking at ourselves. I know for me, that's something I've been going through a lot recently, where I'm just looking at myself. And one of the things that we can do usually is we have certain circumstances in our lives that prevent us from having to look at ourselves. Like, for instance, falling in love with someone. That person feels so good. Now I don't have to look at the trauma that's deep in my heart, right? This person will see me. This person will feel something. This person will do something that makes me feel seen, right? Getting the job that you need, having the exact right money for your certain circumstance, having your reputation the way you want it, all kinds of different things. When you have your circumstances the way you want it, you don't have to look at yourself. And every once in a while, life does something to change those circumstances. And it's hard. And when that happens, you do what you can to first kind of deny that this is happening. Try to save those certain circumstances. Try to do what you can, to fix them or get them the same, because you're being forced to look at yourself, right? You're being forced. Like, that was the person for me, and then they're leaving, and I'm sitting here feeling trauma. And when you feel trauma, there are a million different ways you can prevent yourself from feeling trauma, right? Here's this part of you that feels shame. Here's this part of you that feels anger. Here's this part of you that feels darkness. It's like, here's that trauma from when I was a kid. And when that happens, you can grab onto a bunch of people and talk about something else. You can be distracted. You can get the right amount of money some other way. You can live on YouTube. You can live on, Line. You can do whatever you want, because there's nothing more painful in certain circumstances, especially after we've trained ourselves so much to be the opposite, than being alone with yourself, than just being with yourself, like having your base fall apart, having your story, your reputation, everything fall. It puts you in a position, no matter what, to look at yourself. And it hurts. And when it hurts, you're sitting here going through this darkness. You're going through, you don't, know what to do. In some cases, some people feel, I don't even want to be here. There's all this pain. There's all this stuff. And it's very easy to go, okay, switch to alcohol. It's very easy to go switch to a drug, switch to connecting with other people, switch to a thing, go to an addiction, right? Do everything you can to avoid this thing. And for the last, quite a bit, I've been with that, right? I've been with that. Because for me, certain circumstances are changing, and it creates a place where it kills what you think you are, but it's never hurting what you actually are. It kills what you think you are, but not what you are. It kills what you've trained yourself to be. It kills what you've told yourself you've been since you were a little kid, or since, high school, or since, you started this job, whatever. You could have done a pattern for 30 years, and then something happens that destroys the pattern, and you make the mistake of thinking that's you. And when that happens, a lot of things show up. You might feel motivated, like, I'm just going to switch my focus and I'm going to make this thing happen. Or you might feel driven. You might feel like, I'm going to change this. And this is where you can go through both real highs and real lows, because you're like, I'm motivated, I'm driven. And then you just go, oh, screw it. Like, what I was is trying to fall apart. And you can feel this darkness again. And the truth also is, when that happens, you can just wait a while. Like, wait, be in this thing, because parts of you that no longer serve you are trying to fall apart. And you can really trick yourself into thinking those things that were trying to fall apart are what define me. Those things that fall apart are what I thought I am. So you kind of negotiate with it and deny that it's happening and do everything you can to keep it there. But eventually you start to get to the other side of that, and you're not trying to save those things anymore. Instead, you're just surrendering. You're just surrendering and saying, life's got something new for me. And then those aspects of you can fall. And all of us, I really believe in 2020, with things going on in the world, the coronavirus, how much anger we all feel for each other and different things, the stock market collapsing, people, change is like at its boiling point. Like Teal Swan talks about how we're at our boiling point right now. And so what happens is, because we're on like the verge of like having to see the trauma in our body and it doesn't want to be seen, it moves to major rage. It moves to major people against other people, people against the government, certain politicians, people against, like, everything is just, we're all sitting here with our trauma like right here. And we don't want to feel it. So we move to anger, we move to shame, we move to hate, we move to focusing on something outside of us. But I promise you, eventually that will be tiring. And you might notice that addictions are getting more and more boring and tiring, right? Like, you're seeing through, God, I look at Facebook 10,000 times a day and I'm still not fulfilled. You're sitting there going, God, no matter how many times I talk about this thing, it's still there. And then what you're left with is you. What you're left with is you. And instead of going, this situation pisses me off, this is the problem, this is what's wrong with everything, this thing out here, you're left finally with you. And you sit there and you go, I'm suffering. And you talk about you, because everything outside of you has been your distraction from this. I'm suffering. And I think something else is creating the suffering, but really the truth is I'm suffering. There's pain in me from my childhood. I'm suffering. And I've been carrying the suffering. And throughout, the last 20 years, I've been able to be distracted from my suffering. I've been able to watch enough movies or go get enough dinners or go get drunk enough times to do everything I can to avoid suffering. And we are people who are suffering. And I say this because if you understand that, then this year can be something you can work through a lot, because really see it as this year and the next year probably are here for your ascension. They're here for your growth. And when you start to take the focus off of all the things outside of you that either distract you or trigger you, and be here alone with you, you will sit here and you will go, I feel this pain. And you might at first say I'm suffering and nothing happens, but then you might also say I'm suffering and start just crying. And guess what? When you start crying, the pattern that caused the damage in your past starts to get cried out. And you start to actually ascend. You start to move past. You start to move to a place where you are bigger than all of your circumstances combined. You are bigger than all your circumstances combined, but you might be wearing like this life jacket of an old story that you are addicted to. And that's what hurts. And when you finally sit there and say to yourself, I'm hurting, and you stay with it, and you don't get too much in the why or what triggered the hurting, because the thing that you think triggered the hurting is never the thing that triggered the hurting. It's you avoiding you and saying that did. And you're sitting there going, I'm suffering, I'm hurting. And you might cry and you might just sit in it, and you might finally be with you. And this is your chance to kind of connect with source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and just say, I'm here and I'm hurting. And let that transcend. I really believe that this year, everything is on stilts. Everything that was built that does not have that foundation in it, that whether it's inside our bodies or outside, it's going to fall right now. And that's okay, because what it's left with is you as source, you in this moment, you losing the patterns. The only thing that can fall apart is what you're not. So what are you left with? Me. Everything is a house of cards right now. All anger is a house of cards. It's a bunch of patterns, looking at other patterns, doing everything they can to avoid themselves. It is a house of cards. Everything is a house of cards right now for all of us. If you feel triggered easily, if you feel off, if you feel who you are as your money, if you feel who you are as your circumstances, and these things are falling, boom, you are left with you. My family is a house of cards, Yvonne says. Yes. And elements of what aren't you, that you thought were you, are going to fall. And it's going to be the best thing for all of us. And I promise you, you will see, without knowing the specifics, the next couple years is going to be people angrier, crazier, louder, blaming. Like, can you imagine any way that the election could even happen without some kind of crazy fight? Like, why did that not happen? Like, when Bush and Clinton ran, you'd just be like, oh, we're going to have an election. But now it's like, we're so like, I'm this person and you're this person and we're different and I'm mad at you. And boom, like, it's going to be a fight. You're going to be like, there will be this tension among groups against other groups. We're at a time where groups are against other groups. Are you for this thing? Are you against this thing? That's happening right now. So Jordan Blackman says, what's the copy? My daughter, Vivi, has another one that says Control V, like she's the paste of me. So what we're doing is we're doing everything we can to move in a way to avoid this inevitable thing. And we were at my meditation retreat last week, which was profound. And we discovered how many things we do just to avoid this pain, just to avoid ourselves, just to avoid suffering inside of our body. And how many people like think, you know, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you know, if I don't have them, they're abandoning me, right? This kind of thinking, this person's abandoning me. Okay, this person's function then is to help you avoid your own trauma. So just so you know, many relationships are just attachment, and the attachment is based on what you're scared of feeling if that attachment's not there. So when we're scared to let go of something, it's because we're scared to feel what's under it. So you have this attachment to these things, and if it falls, eventually you're going to be stuck with you, right? Here you are with you, and I'm telling you, you will either feel it now, you can allow yourself to let go of what doesn't serve you, or you can feel it later when it's pulled from you. But anything that you're scared of feeling, is going to be exposed eventually. There's going to be a spotlight on that pain. There's going to be, you know, candles on there. You're looking at this thing, shit. And it could be a couple months of like, almost negotiation. How do I stop feeling this? If only I could get my circumstances back the exact way I want them so that I don't have to feel this. How can I do everything I can to avoid feeling this? Well, eventually you're going to. And when you do, you're just there and you feel, I want to cry, I want to do all this. Boom. Then it comes out. So I think that that's coming. I really do. I can feel that pattern in everyone that I'm working with. We're doing so much work with people online, and I'm finding the same thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're in the thing that they think is a huge situation or what they see as a small situation. Our old stories are all being thrown up. Our old stories are being purged. Everything we're not, all of our, you know, false relationships, all of our false careers, all of our false everything is there. And when that's purged, you become bigger than everything you were scared to lose. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if everyone in the world hates you. If you know what's true in you, eventually, it doesn't matter. Would you rather have what's true about you and the whole world doesn't understand it and they're all trying to figure out, and then or would you rather you don't like you but everyone likes you? This is something I talked about last week. Do you feel that? You are here to connect with you, and life is trying to get you present. And when you're more present and you're in the moment, you can move so much more because you're not in an old pattern, right? You're here, you can hear the birds, you can hear the wind, and you care about it more than you care about the story, more than you care about the thing that's being attacked, more than you care about all of that shit. Right? You end up here with you. And so what I'm discovering, that's part of one of my roles in this world, is for me to live that and to be that space, because the world is going to be going through that. And so I'm like crying out shit and moving to a way where it's like, okay, who would I be without these things I think I'm losing? But I'm in my power, and I've cried out, or I'm crying out, what is not me? Let what is trying to fall apart fall apart. It could be huge, it could be seemingly huge, it doesn't matter. It's all what you see and hear, right? So I'm excited about what's birthing, and I'm still in mourning about the things that aren't here, and it's fine too. So I offer that to you, because what you're scared of losing is not you. There's nothing you can lose that actually is what you are. Try that. You might be, no way, this has been with me for 30 years. It doesn't matter. And there's a mourning, there's a pain, there's a story. And then eventually you are bored of mourning it. You're bored of negotiating with it. You're bored of fighting it. You're bored of it. And then this new you that feels a love in you that's bigger than anything outside of you shows up. And life is forcing that on every human being right now. It's forcing that on all of us. What a gift. You're going to see it. You're going to see it everywhere, because it's just chaos now. We have here's why too. We have way too much distracting abundance. We have enough ability to go on the phone a million times. You have Tinder, you have YouTube, you have a grillion videos you can watch, and you always think you're going on for like a minute, right? I'll just check for a minute, and then a minute becomes another minute, and another minute, and another minute, and another minute, and then eventually that's your day. My dare to the people at the meditation retreat was try that with meditation, right? With meditation, right? I'm going to just meditate a minute. Like, what if you started meditating at the same pattern as your phone, right? Instead of that thing, like you just feel like doing this, right? Like, I just feel like looking at this. Okay, I'm just looking at my phone. Like, we do that. Okay, just there's a minute. You go into a Starbucks, every person is doing this, right? If you just see a person just sitting around not doing anything, you're like, what the hell is wrong with that dude, right? Like, what's wrong with them? And I want to dare you to consider moving in a way where you understand you want to know what you are, because what's falling apart is that old thing, that old you, right? So this is really, really exciting to me, because this is birthing. And if things hadn't have fallen apart in certain ways, that might not have. So think of how exciting this could be for you, right? What's trying to birth? What are you trying to become? It's just a thought to start with. And yeah, before I move forward, why don't we take a deep breath and release it. And maybe think of a word like love, connection, now, here, thank you, source, release, yes. Just start saying yes to whatever's coming up, and breathe that in and breathe that out. Breathe in love and breathe out hurt. Breathe out fear, right? Do it again. Let's go in again. And breathe out. Zoe says, phone gives a dopamine spurt to pleasure center every time we look at it. That's true. Like there's studies that show it actually has the same, checking your email and your phone has the same effect as what a slot machine does. Because a slot machine makes sure you win a little bit every once in a while, right? You very rarely put $100 in a slot machine and it just takes it all. You put it out in and it goes loss, 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 win. And you just grab onto that win as hope and you don't notice the 3 losses. So now you're down to $80, but you got all this hope because of that one win. So it's like loss, 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 win. And you're sitting there going, look at that. We got it back up to 70. And you're like not even noticing you have $30 less, but you're like bizarrely optimistic and excited. So it's like loss, 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 win. And you're like, oh, we lost down to 50 and then we went back up to 60. And you keep going through this thing where you're actually looking at the wins as this bizarrely optimistic thing, and you don't notice that overall you're losing. That's our phone, right? You go onto an addiction, loss, 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 win. Like I'm already like, okay, just feeling, like what's the phone, it gives you this thing. It's like loss, 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 in that you're losing your connection, you're losing yourself, you're losing whatever. And that's like win. Oh, someone likes me. And this has created a major, unnecessarily codependent world because you're depressed if the person didn't text you back. You're sad if nothing happened. You're sad if like you're addicted to the wins now. And your phone's like a life slot machine, right? Your phone is like a life, and so is email, and so is Facebook. You'll check it 4 times, no one wrote you, boom, the 5th one someone did. But you don't notice how much you're losing by checking it. Hey, someone wrote back. And then you notice, I don't care. Like, so for me, getting off those things has been so helpful, And then there's new things that I discovered I have to get off of, like my old story, like the old ways that I live, like what I was, right? What do we, let go of, and what happens? How much more of a win is it to not be in the casino, right? Yeah, you can win every once in a while, and there's a few stories of people that won $1 million one night. But overall, if you never went in a casino, you probably have more money, right? But Erica says, I don't like gambling now. I see social media as gambling. It makes it easier to break that addiction. Of course, this is totally gambling, right? Because what are the ideas that can't come through because you keep thinking about it? What are the new possibilities? What is the new version of you? What are you without constantly hooking on to the old story? What ideas, what possibilities, what new you is trying to come through that you can't see? Right? When you lose the constant addiction to the old story that's scared about all the stuff, you finally are free to grab onto the new story, the you that's up here that goes, boom, I'm going to expand the shit out of you. And finally what happens is they make this story shit. So it gets so depressing, or you're looking at an ex is in love with someone new, and now you don't want to look at your phone. Boom, free for the expansion of the real you, right? So that's what is trying to birth. And sometimes life goes, I'm going to make sure you go actually live that and take that away, right? I'm going to quarantine you in the house, and I'm going to take away your ability to go to concerts this year because of the coronavirus, right? Like I'm going to take away your ability to whatever. I'm going to knock the economy down so you don't get there and think that who you are is your money. I'm going to make things harder so people have to enjoy the moment more because they're not just constantly in their false sense of abundance based on their popularity, how many likes they got, or anything else, right? This is what's happening. Yeah. Why don't we look at some questions you guys have? I would love to hear more discussion about judgment against others. It appears to be running rampant these days. I totally agree. And yeah, if you judge someone else, you don't have to focus on you. In fact, it's weird because that's not always the case, right? Like, really think about this. Like in the 80s, this wasn't something that was happening as much. And I really believe that from what I learned and remember growing up as in the 80s, I remembered seeing people excited about becoming something, right? There was kind of more of a focus on what they could be and what, you know, their goal was out there. And there's a really interesting book called Pendulum. And the book talks about, this is fascinating, actually. I want to share this with you. It's really, really an interesting thing. It talks about how every 40 years, human beings swing up one way. And so they go up 20 years one way and they come down 20 years one way. And so this is 40 years. And then this is 40 years. And picture that one side of 40 years is we're in one ideology. And then in the other, we're in another ideology. Okay. So in this 40 years, imagine there's the me generation, okay? The me generation, according to this book, you know, if you picture every 40 years, it goes up 20 years, comes down, 20 years, comes down. There's two ways that human beings live, and that they live this way every 40 years and every 40 years. So 1963, yeah, Michael Drew's book. I used to work with him. And he wrote that book. And in 1963, human beings left what was the we generation. You know how in the 40s, kind of everything was the same? There was all kind of a conformity thing. And in the 60s, kind of the Beatles made fun of the conformity. And they broke out in 63. And people started seeing themselves as a unique, kind of separated vision while still celebrating with a group of people, right? So like imagine in 63, the Beatles kind of make fun of the conformity. They're all wearing the suits and they have the hair. 63 to 73, people are liberated from the collective. They're doing Woodstock. They're saying things like, I feel free, born to be wild. And then the book talks about how in 73, we always take a good thing too far. So 73 to 83, things kind of get cartoonish. You got the Village People, giant hair bands. Michael Jackson's wearing one diamond glove and walking backwards and forwards at the same time. Madonna says, I'm a material girl. Could you imagine if someone now came out and said, I'm the material girl? How much that wouldn't fit now? Because now we're in a we, and we're saying we are the 99%. And there's a lot of hate for what's perceived as the 1%, right? So 83, it gets ridiculous. All right. It's like, everything's crazy. And the youth show up and they go, you guys are too extreme. We're more realistic. And then they said, we like bands that are like us. We like music that are like us. So they started liking Nirvana and moving into this kind of more what they call realistic, and moved into the we. And imagine that 2003 is the birth of the we. So in the 80s, advertising was really loud, right? In the 80s, it would be like, act now and you get the Ginsu steak knives. It was this very hyped thing. But once it moved down and then the iPhone came out, the advertising was this kind of lowercase I, you know, and just a hand subtly, like advertising got subtle. And people started liking people that felt more like them, right? So people actually liked actors that also had flaws. Like in the 80s, people liked Arnold Schwarzenegger because they saw themselves as a vision. But imagine in like the 2000s, people are like, this actor, like Zach Galifianakis and Seth Rogen, feel more like a friend next door. And a day that was fascinating to me was it talked about the day that the movies clearly switched from the me to a we was when they put out Geely and it totally bombed. The movie Geely is a movie where a lead actor and a lead actress were actually dating, and it was like Ben Affleck and I think J-Lo. And the movie came out and totally bombed. And that's because it was a me movie in a we time, right? Yeah, this is really interesting. But that same night, Napoleon Dynamite came out. Napoleon Dynamite was a low-budget movie with no stars, and it played an underdog character. And all of a sudden, underdogs in the world were our stars, right? Every movie now is much more about the underdog, and people are much more supportive of the underdogs than the stars. In fact, TMZ is about taking down the stars, right? So there's what's the girl that's pregnant movie? Juno? Yeah, right? Blair Witch Project. These are we movies, right? So that was kind of the switch into the we. And the weird thing is, at the top of the we is when all the world wars are. Gili, I think. Gili, I think. So all the at the top of the we, which we're at, according to this book, that's when all the chaos is. That's when all the world wars are. That's when everything, because we are exactly the same as 80 years ago. Obama won during a we time. His slogan literally was, "Yes, we can." And he was against John McCain, who claimed to be the maverick, which is a very 80s thing, right? I'm the one that breaks out against conformity. Well, that would have been great in the 80s, back when our president was an actor. But when Obama won, it was a we thing. And no matter what happens politically, there's rigging and different things that are happening right now, but no matter what you feel about anyone, Bernie is filling stadiums because he's playing a we, right, and saying we, right? So this is fascinating to me. And this is why I think that there's a lot of stuff coming up in this time, because we're in a we, and our we is at a fever pitch chaos. And imagine 80 years ago from now, which was exactly the same in the pattern, was 1940. So we're literally about to go into the same time as World War II, you know, and the Great Depression is around this time, right? So this is a big time of like everyone banding together. And the reason they band together is because we're against other people. The reason we band together is in our hate of someone else. That's why people band together, right? You wouldn't need to connect with someone unless you're in a place of hating the other side, hating another gender, hating another country, hating and whatever. And so literally our identity now is what we're against. And so people in this time are mainly focused on what they're not. And so that's one of the reasons there's judgment, is because when you band together in this time, we're all focused on what we're taking down. And so the other side is focused on what they're taking down. And a way to heal this is not join in that. A way to heal this is to be there with that pain. A way to heal this is to look at what's going on with you. Because if you stay banded in your anti-something, you're going to be faced with your shit later. But if you have this awareness of what you are right now, you can heal that shit that wants to move together, wants to connect. That's why this pattern happens. The group of people that are here now are a group of people that are rebelling against the 80s. Right? They're a group of people that are rebelling against that time. It's not wanting to be like that. So, and the 60s were rebelling against the 40s. Like, it's like, we're all doing that, right? So this is really big, because if you don't join that and don't join the collective we, and instead be a we with yourself, right? Be a we with yourself. I'm sad. I'm scared. I'm stuck. I'm lost, I'm suffering, whatever. This can heal things, and it will birth a new consciousness. You will see a world form through your eyes that is not the world that you see that already exists, right? That's the kind of stuff like Martin Luther King was doing, right? Here is this person with a vision. Imagine that. Imagine the vision that Martin Luther King would have had to held in the time Martin Luther King was living, in a time when the world was not accepting what his vision was. He had to hold a consciousness and a vision that was higher than was accepted. And that's trying to come through you. That's trying to come through you. And if you, instead of joining that collective we, connect to you and cry out the bullshit, you will birth a new version of the world that is supposed to come through you, right? Do you feel what I'm saying? The only thing that's getting hit in this time is the bullshit story of what you're not. And if you cry out what you're not, you will see the birth of a new world. And you will be shocked how many people around you will start to cry out their shit and not just avoid their shit by connecting with other people, right? That's what's trying to birth right now. A you that's connected to you. Do you feel that? A you that sees, and once you cry out that shit, you start to see, I'm bigger than the thing I was scared to lose. I don't care if you lose $100 million, you're bigger than it. I don't care if you lose everyone in the world's opinion of you. Eventually, you're going to hold space for a higher version of you that they will see is true about them, right? That's happening, right? Teresa says, how do I stay there? What a great question. You will live there, because the only thing that's stopping you from staying there is something that will fall off of you eventually. The only thing stopping you from being there is something that will fall off of you eventually. There is nothing that actually can be affected in you by what other people do or say about you. The only thing that can is something that you learned and triggered and a pattern that's trying to come off of you, right? So when, let's say, whatever, you lose something and you're triggered, you know, how could the pain be inside of you based on what other people say? That doesn't make any sense. And how many things have you not heard someone said about you that doesn't affect you? So the factor is not what people are saying about you, because a million people have said a million things about you. And if you could have the choice of knowing what it was or not, you'd probably say, I don't even want to know. Right? The factor of what happens is someone says shit about you. Someone says something about you, or you lose something you thought was you, the money, you lose the story, whatever. And it triggers something inside of you. They aren't the factor. You are the factor. They say something and it triggers something inside of you. You're sitting here thinking, they say something, or coronavirus comes out, the stock market falls, and it triggers something inside of you. Boom. Stay focused on what the hell has been triggered inside of you. Don't go to that. Don't go fix that. Don't even try to change that, because if you change that, this shit's still here. Really take that in. If someone triggers you and you get that changed, this thing's still not seen. So let's say you're going through a breakup. I've had it where I used to have it where a woman I'm dating could be holding my hand and we're having an off moment and she takes her hand away and I feel really depressed, like a feeling of abandonment. Now, would I rather get her to hold my hand and avoid the fact that that exists in my body, that's craziness, that when this woman stops holding my hand, I feel depressed? Or do I go, wait, why don't I just be alone with this lie that feels so scared that I'll be abandoned? Because that's crazy, right? And when we stop feeding it, we're stuck with the thing, right? Like, and that's the thing. So when it shows up, don't go to the next thing. Don't fix it with the next relationship to make up for it. Don't fix it with the other side. Birth what's coming through. Stay focused on what's coming through you. What's coming through you? What's coming through you? What's birthing in you? So take your time and let life go. I'm going to do what I need to do with you my way. Right? You are not here to, if you are scared of looking at this, you'll go to a mentality of destroying things. And because you don't want to feel this. I know sometimes when I'm in that pain that you could be like, well, at least the coronavirus will take us all out. That's not a good way of thinking, right? Where you're like, I'm scared, so I want to take down everything else, right? That's not how you want to live, right? You want to look at that pattern in you that would think that, right? Right? So it's up to us to go, what Michael Beckwith would say, what's trying to emerge out of me, right? What's trying to emerge? I'm here to create, not destroy. What is trying to emerge out of me? What level of love, forgiveness for myself, what level of what I've never been before is trying to birth, is trying to emerge? It's Michael Beckwith's question. What's trying to emerge? This is how you change the world, by changing you. And the world is on hyper speed, giving us the opportunity to change ourselves. In 3 days, you can shift so much shit now because we're all so damn sensitive. And if we stop going to every external addiction and trying to keep everything from you seeing you, then you're going to be free, right? What is trying to emerge out of you? Stay with it. Don't go to the external. That's just a delay, right? That's just a delay. Don't go to the external. Don't go to switch it. Don't go to anything. Stay there. There's a you that you've never seen before. And there's a world you've never seen before following that you, right? That you will be like your head coming above the clouds and you seeing a sun and that becoming the form of a new world. That's your Martin Luther King, right? That's you. That's available for you. That's available for all of us. We just have to let it hit us when it's too hard and it's too much. Let it hit you. Stay with it. Be in that suffering. Be in that pain. Something's birthing that's amazing. A you you've never seen before, but also a whole world you've never seen before. Right? Yeah. So you have the choice. Constant fear and addiction from the fear, or immersion, growth. You. Let's go. Isn't that exciting? That's what I've learned in the last month. So that's why I believe, to answer Suzanne's question, why judgment is rampant against others. Because we don't want to see this thing inside of us, right? And I've been doing everything I can to avoid my judgment of others. There's a lot of things that's very easy for me to judge. And instead, I'm just like, okay, I feel like shit. I'm going to emerge out of it and create a new planet. I'm suffering. I'm sad. I'm scared. I'm lost. Blah. And then you're like, I'm here. I'm me. I'm love. I'm free. That's trying to happen. That's trying to happen. That's what we're here for. Gina asks, Kyle, I would love to talk about anger. Do you notice how many of us want to talk about why is judgment so much? Why anger is it here? Right? This is because this time we're all in that. We've all been so addicted to everything outside that we've been avoiding the shit out of our feelings. So they're coming to the surface. This is like 20 years of feelings coming up. That's why you feel anger, right? Because you've been avoiding this thing. Kyle, I would love to talk about anger. I rarely experience anger. And yesterday, when I was practicing, I sing opera for a living, I broke down into tears and experienced some of the most intense anger I have ever have. I'm holding a space for it. It passed, and there was a silence that had not been there before. What is anger? Oh, my belief is that anger is the fact that you feel something and are not feeling that you're allowed to feel it. Like anger is you at yourself without knowing it. And we think it's outside. But you're sitting there and you feel all this stuff, you feel all this pain, you feel all this, right? And if you don't let yourself feel it, you're avoiding it. And the more you avoid it, the angrier you're going to get because you're mad. Your inner child is mad that it's not being seen. What's really trying to happen? Your inner child is trying to be seen. Let your inner child be seen. And if you walk right into it, it moves from anger to sadness. And I find the level we're trying to get to, is between sadness and euphoria, right? That anger is your judgment of sadness. That you have sadness, but when you think you can't feel it, you start to go to rage or anger, right? I broke down into tears and experienced some of the most intense anger I ever have. After holding the space for it, it passed, and there was a silence that had not been there before. That's amazing. When you feel that, feel it. Don't aim it at anyone else, but feel it, hit a pillow, yell it out, whatever. But what's really going on is an unseen child that's starting to get furious that we keep not seeing it because we think we're not allowed to see it. So I would say you're only this moment, Gina. You're right here, and take a deep breath in. And I really recommend that people take a deep breath in, because when you do, you remind yourself that you're here. See, when you don't take a deep breath and pay attention to the breath, you think you're the story. But when you actually take a deep breath in and be there for the story, you transcend so much shit, right? So here's the story coming up, and you're mad, and you're in the story, and you're angry, and then you cry it out, right? That's what's happening right now. And you're so powerful. You're so powerful with that shit cried out. So sending love to you, Gina. And it's okay you're experiencing anger. And one great thing about the fact that you felt that is you're practicing feeling that. So now you're a little bit more of an expert on how to feel that. So you're better because you understand what that is, and you get that, okay, I'm feeling anger, feel it. Like I'm like, oh, okay, I'm triggered by that. No, I'm suffering. Like I'm in the practice of staying on me now versus like the situations, right? Try it with you. So does that help, Gina? I don't know if that helps, but Rebecca Marie, so good to hear from you. And same with you, Gina. On forgiveness, a teacher I had recommends, I forget how to pronounce that, hope that thing, which is saying, please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, I love you, to everyone I encounter. Yes. As I dive inward, I'm finding that there is nothing to forgive, and that feels cool. That's true. It's actually very egoic of us to decide we're forgiving something in certain ways, because on the highest level, when you meditate long enough, you realize you just are forgiveness. And so when we're going, I'm deciding when I forgive you, is actually a very kind of thing that I understand it. But truly, when you look at life through the universe's perspective, it's forgiven, right? When you look at life from the universe's perspective, you feel forgiveness. When you feel forgiveness, you move to a grade that would never do that again, right? And so when we say, I forgive you, you're implying that you have control over the person who's sorry, right? And so you can still say, I forgive you for your freedom. But when you forgive someone, it frees you. It has nothing to do with them. It frees you. So forgiving people is for you, right? I remember seeing a thing that said, it doesn't change their past, it changes your future, right? So when you forgive someone, you're free, right? And it's not because they apologized, because then if they apologize and you say, I forgive you, then they're still stuck to you. They're free because you decided to free them. And you can also apologize and not feel forgiven, right? You can apologize and decide that you're forgiven even if someone doesn't. Because no one gets to decide when they're free of the thing that either was done to them by the other person or from them. They don't decide that. You decide for you when you're free of it, right? You decide for you, right? You decide for you when you're free of something. You decide for you when you're sorry, whether they forgive you or not, and you decide for you when you forgive someone, whether they're sorry or not. Otherwise, we're all too stuck to each other. So that's a great thing. And we could all say it for our own liberation. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. And imagine the healing that could happen where it's not I'm right and you're wrong. It's not this war. That's the liberation of the world. As I dive forward, I'm finding that there is nothing to forgive, and that feels cool. For X, some might think Judas betrayed Jesus, but without him, there would be no crucifixion, so no resurrection. Exactly. Or without Hitler, there'd be no Schindler. Am I a freak for feeling this way? I just wonder if you'd share your thoughts on forgiveness. Well, with what you said about Hitler, there'd be no Schindler. I understand what you're saying. And I would also say that we don't know the bigger story of anything going on, right? We don't know the bigger story. Let's say you're in a thing, you're going through a breakup, and you're really sad, or you're going through something that's really, really dark. Well, also in that, you're leaving the house at a different time. I always think of this example, but different people are going through different traffic lights at different times. You might be avoiding a giant accident. People are meeting people they wouldn't have met. Different kids are now born. Everything you do, literally me doing this, 5,000 different kids suddenly exist, right? Just if we end this call, 10 seconds later, everything's different in the world. This butterfly effect is a real thing. So our pain is that we're looking through the small lens of our ego versus the giant lens of the universe. And when you understand that you don't know the entire thing, you're free, right? Literally me going, everyone's different now. Everything's different because I did that, right? So when you start to look at your life from that view, that literally, literally if I end this 10 seconds later, you're laughing now. That already aligns, because you're saying you're laughing your ass off. That's literally aligning different sperm, different times. Everything's fucking different. This is different. Everything's different. Different, right? You're changing your position. Some of you are laughing. Some of you are not laughing and thinking this is ridiculous. All things are different now. You might suddenly be like, I could just say this, watch. Why don't you call someone after this and tell them I love you? Just that sentence. If 5 of you watching out of the 400 people that are on here, call someone and tell them I love them, or I forgive them, or I'm thankful for you, whatever, everything's different. You might fall in love with that person, or maybe they'll go fuck you, and then you'll learn something new about you, and everything's different, whatever, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Everything is different. So no matter how much, for instance, if you don't like Trump, just so you know, every kid born after Trump is totally different than if he was there, right? If he wasn't there. Probably every kid, right? Everything that you can measure that's ever happened in the past that you call bad, right, could very well be the reason you exist, right? You get what I'm saying? So if you understand how to look at something from the universe's perspective, right, then you will move in a place that's higher and see, like, I didn't know that was supposed to happen. And that's what I'm starting to do with myself. Like, okay, stuff I'm going through. Okay, what else is forming in that? I don't see the whole thing. What is different in the world? It's very selfish of me to say this shouldn't be happening to me. Do you get what I'm saying? It's very selfish of us to say this shouldn't be the case in any situation, because it is. And part of that it is us creating an entire new world indirectly without even knowing it, right? That's trying to happen. So it's funny when we're saying, I don't know what the hell is happening with this. You never will. Whether you think something that's happening is good in your life or bad, that's your ego judging it. Even if you think it's good. Oh my God, we just got married. We won $1 million. You might be calling it good, but it's good to the separate story. It's good to the story of you. It's not necessarily anything as far as the bigger picture, except for the universe expanding itself, its way. And you're a part of that. And there's ways you're measuring it through your ego versus understanding the entire picture. I don't know the entire picture. I don't know why, that person left or this person said this. I don't know the whole thing. I surrender. Right? I surrender. Whatever is happening is supposed to be happening. And then there's a level of surrender when you can see this that really moves you into your power. Because you're like, this is big, and I surrender. I'm going to find the real version of myself. I'm going to find the truth of what I am. I'm going to move into my power. That's what is going on, right? And you have to move to seeing things from the world when things seem bad, because they only seem bad to your lens of the ego. Right? So when you're looking through the lens of the ego, shit falls apart, and you cry out the you that's looking through this dumb, small lens. right? So when that thing falls apart, your lens falls apart and starts to become this lens, and it starts to become this lens, and it starts to become all that is, and you move into your power, right? So that's an ad there, Rebecca Marie, to just join you in that. I hope that kind of helps, right? Carefree Kimberly asks, hi, Kyle. I hope you and your family are doing well. My question is, what do you do when you get overwhelmed by all the mundane tasks that need to get done during the day or even in a week? I find that even though I take it one task at a time and one day at a time, I'm still getting overwhelmed. It seems every time I turn around, it's like I have to start over again. Oh, Kimberly, what a great question. It's weird you say that because something happened today that actually gave me the answer to this question before I knew you were going to ask it. Earlier, someone was asking me a question about a bill, and I was just like, I don't know. And they were like, how do I do this Chase thing, and what should we put in it? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And I noticed the mundane task of that was out of alignment for me. And I thought to myself, what am I really good at? And I know that one of the things I'm good at is the stuff coming through. Like, so I was like, instead of me ever spending time doing that shit, I'm here to work with people, you know? So we were thinking of like online, you know, working with people. And I kind of thought of, with the coronavirus, the idea of doing online flow groups where I could do 3 days with people, which are the flow groups where I work with 4 people. And I thought to myself, imagine if I did online virtual flow groups where I could just work with people on Zoom for 3 days for, you know, cheaper, and they don't have to fly in. And I thought that would be more valuable of my time than doing the mundane tasks. And then with me doing my gift, I could, with that money, delegate the things that I don't care about to other people that are masters at that, right? Like yeah, and if you're interested in that, write info@kylecease.com and we'll help you with that, because we're interested in doing that. But that's actually my answer to Carefree Kimberly is, I feel like there is a gift that I have, and I'm in my dharma when I do it, like this, and when I work with people, and when I do what's awesome. And when I'm doing things that are not in my alignment, right, I have other people do them now. And the more I'm spending my time doing what I'm a master at, then I can take and delegate to other people that are a master at the things that I don't want to do. Do you feel what I'm saying? So the truth is, I believe that mundane tasks are here to show you that you're not doing the thing you love to do. And there are other people that love to do the thing that you perceive as mundane tasks. And if you do the thing you love to do, the thing that flows, the thing that flies, or you move towards the thing you love to do. Like if you're an amazing writer, imagine if you're writing all day and creating something, right? And then the things that feel mundane, someone else can do that loves that, right? Like for me, like hanging up curtains is not something I love to do, but there's probably someone at TaskRabbit that loves to, right? So doing things like that I don't love to do, but that other people love to do, you don't have to do those things. You don't have to do those things. Do the things you love and watch as you become amazing. It was weird because last week I was going through a lot of stuff, but we did the meditation retreat, and I noticed when I was on stage, I was in my dharma, I was in my confidence, I was free, and I was in my fucking power, right? And something about just my dharma helped me through really hard times. And we got to do what we are masters at doing, right? And then the things that feel mundane, it's just a sign that's not your place. It was like the flow group, or I'm sorry, the meditation retreat helped me through stuff I was going through. I was with the crowd, crying through shit, working through shit, constantly being in that alignment, because that is an area I'm a master at. It's an area I've been on stage for 30 years. And that's what was teaching me. And me in my darkest pain on the stage was making the content more real anyway. So that's coming up for you. If you feel mundane in your tasks, what is with the sniffing? Did I miss something? I'm just sniffing. I have coronavirus. So That's why we're doing all the coaching virtually now. But what if you just did what you love and let that grow and let that be you and let that be your magic? And this is your way of, bringing the greatest you to the world, bringing your freedom to the world, bringing your healing to the world, and understanding, right, what you're here for. Understanding that you're going to find art that comes through, and in that art you're going to feel good, and you're going to access a higher consciousness, and everything that feels mundane is telling you, hey, this is out of your alignment, right? Let's change it. Let's not do it. Do the thing you love to do. Love you guys. Forgiveness to myself for dropping the ball on myself. I love that. Free yourself. Let's free ourselves. Let's know that we're amazing. Let's move into a higher vibration. Let's move into what you are, and just know that it's been an absolute honor to be with you tonight. And I'll see you next week. Love you guys. Bye.